So I just want to talk about how good or bad is your body, and just to basically put a bit of perspective on things. I've had a few chats recently about people saying how they're just in the worst possible shape, the worst shape imaginable. Likewise, if I go out and meet people, they're like, do you think I need to lose body fat? And ask me opinions of those sorts. What I want to just for you to understand is that there's no such thing as a good or bad body shape, body-wise, but rather that everything is along a continuum of results and success. So what you've got to understand is, if you draw a line in a piece of paper, you can write out of shape on one end, amazing shape on another end, and you are somewhere along that scale. Now, what most people think is that they're always, the worst possible shape, but that's not a realistic pictured view of where their actual body is along the spectrum of the general population. So if you look at the general population, then what you'll find is that most people, bear in mind that 66% of people are overweight, then most people are going to be, if we talk in body fat terms, for men, they're going to be around that 25 to 30% mark. For women, they're going to be 5 to 10% higher, because that's how women's bodies are, higher in body fat naturally. Then they're going to be around that 35 to 40% mark is where the majority of people are going to be. Now, you may not know your body fat, but just wanted to put it in these terms because it's more helpful than weight. The reality being that most people I speak with are pretty much bang in these middle marks around, like I say, for men, somewhere between 20 and 30% body fat. Most women I work with are roughly between 30 and 40% body fat, which, when you look at these graphs of the population, is fairly normal. So rather than beating yourself up for being in the worst shape ever, you should actually accept yourself and appreciate the fact that you're not in much worse shape than you already are. Again, if you're at 40%, 45% body fat, then still accept there are still lots of people who are in more out of shape, who are further down that spectrum of results. The real question, though, what I want to talk about here is, just before I go on to that, I just want to point out that it does change before the population will change what your body fat criteria normal is. So where that last graph showed where women are in general, we can see around that 35% mark is probably where most women are at. A woman over 50, then the general population has shifted. Most women over 50 are probably higher than that 30 to 35 bracket, and the normal now becomes 40%. So again, if you put this into perspective and compare it to your population-specific results, you're probably, again, not doing as bad as perhaps most people beat themselves up for. But the key thing is just to know, where am I now compared to where my goal is? This is why people, when they come and ask me, do I need to lose weight? Well, the question is, what's your goal? Because if I'm going to compare you with some, people who I know who are fitness models, you've got women at 14, 15% body fat, and I'm speaking to a normal person at 35% body fat, then, well, the answer is you're a long way off your goal. But most people's goals are not these high extremes of low body fat levels. Most people's goals fit into what I call the 10% scale. So for most people, there's probably a 10% band between feeling a complete disaster with your body and feeling amazing about your body. So the idea is, if you take just feeling okay at the middle point, if you were to gain 5% on top of that, then you would feel awful and it would be like disaster. If you went the other way from your normal okay place and you lost 5%, then you would feel, really good, amazing. Obviously, if you lost a little bit more or gained it a little bit more, it would be an even worse disaster or even more amazing feeling for where you're at. But the point I'm making is, this 10% band is not that big an event, as in, it doesn't take that long to get from one end to the other if things are going really well, or vice versa if things are going really bad. So to put an example on this, imagine this for, say, a typical woman, 37-year-old professional. Then when she's at 28%, she probably feels okay about herself. That's above the average population, feeling quite good. Now, if she gains some body fat, she goes up to 31% or maybe goes up to 34, 35%, then she might feel a complete and total disaster, feel out of shape, unhappy. But if you go the other way, if she went from that midpoint of 28% down to 24%, and she's looking real lean, toned, really happy, feeling amazing about how her body is. And it's just that 10% bracket, and it's not that big. Likewise, we took, say, a guy, a guy I work with, model, man in his 20s, if he was at 14% body fat, then that is a complete and total disaster. Around the 10% mark, he's fairly happy, but then just a 4% drop, it's absolutely amazing difference. He's feeling amazing, he's looking great, and it's again, what's that? That's an 8% swing, not even that 10% I was talking about before. Now, what happens with most people is, when do they take action? Well, as you can probably guess, it's not normally when they're feeling great or feeling okay. It's when they're in that bad to disaster zone. This is when people are sort of inspired on, or that's it, the final straw that breaks the camel's back. This is when something happens. So normally most people, when they're thinking of signing up, when they're ready to take action, they're in this bad to disaster zone. But what I want you to be encouraged by is, it doesn't take that long to move forwards into feeling good. The reality is, say today, for that woman example, you're sitting there at 34% feeling awful. In 30 days, you can make a huge turnaround. You could literally lose 3 to 4% body fat in 30 days, in a month, and that's a big change. That's like a dress size down. That's a big change in feeling about how you're feeling in regards to your body. Then over a 90-day period, you could probably get most of the way there. From feeling a disaster at 34%, you could lose 10% in 10 weeks. Then, 90 days longer than 10 weeks. So, you can literally get a big turnaround, 10% body fat, and you've gone from a disaster to feeling absolutely amazing about your body. And it's that small of a time. You think 90 days is nothing in real terms of how long it takes to get out of shape and so forth. And the biggest changes will come in the first 30 days. Now, maybe your body goes a little bit slower. Maybe in 90 days you lose 7% instead of 10%, like I just said. Well, that would still take you from 34% disaster feeling, down and depressed, to feeling great about yourself. Now, obviously, these things don't happen just by thinking about them. It does take an effort. It takes an intelligent effort in both nutrition, in both consistency of exercise, but the point is, the opportunity is there for you to turn things around quickly. So even if you're feeling awful right now, there's nothing that stops you really making a change those first 30 days, really putting it in. If you were to start today, 30 days takes us up to Christmas. Break over Christmas, break even. The next 60 days after that takes you to the end of February. And literally in 3 months, you could be at the end of a complete and total body transformation. The only question you have to ask yourself is, am I ready to move forwards? As ever, if you need help for this, check out my website. There's a free body transformation guide you can download. There's that weekly Getting Results newsletter, which covers nutrition, exercise, and the mind. If we're looking for a book to read, check out my book, Change Your Thinking, Change Your Shape, which is all about how you can get these body transformations to occur.